Stephen Kendrick, in his book, The Love Dare, says, almost every sinful action ever committed can be traced back to the selfish motive. It's a trait we hate in other people, but we justify in ourselves. Selfish motive. To be selfish means a lot of things, but mainly my parents would say when you were acting selfish, you're making this all about you. All you're thinking about is yourself. And I've often thought, how would I describe what it's like to make everything about me? I don't know how many of you are collectors of anything. I'm not a huge collector of this because I don't want my wife to have a whole bunch of junk. She has to go on TV and find out the value. But I love antiques. I love unusual things. And one of the things that I've always wanted, and I just bought here a couple of weeks ago, I got it in a nice white box and a little piece of bubble wrap in here, and it is a hourglass. I'm just amazed at the technology of an hourglass. For those of you who've been living in a cave, let me explain. When you turn this thing over, it puts all the sand on the top, and the sand sifts through this little narrow piece here, as you see, and then it all gathers in the bottom. What's interesting, let's see if I can get it to focus on that rather than me. There you go. What's interesting is that the concept is that the sand in the top reservoir has no value whatsoever until it goes through the middle piece, the middle narrow section. And all of a sudden, the sand that was worthless, it had no value whatsoever, is given value as it sifts through the narrow part of this, and suddenly, in an hourglass, it represents a segment of time, even as minute as it is. This is an hourglass, and so each of those grains of sand mean nothing here. They're validated here in the center, and then they're given that value to enter into the bottom part of that reservoir. Very interesting, huh? An hourglass. This explains to me, and maybe it will make sense to you, what it's like to make everything in my world sift through my obstinacy. I see myself as the narrow part of this hourglass, and in essence, anything that comes into my world sifts through me. I decide what's good and what's bad. I decide what's appropriate and what's not, what's bad and what's good, what's right and what's wrong, what's good, what tastes good, what doesn't taste good, what's comfortable, what's not comfortable. And this is the world that I lived in for many, many years, especially in my early years. My wife would say I have a tendency to live this way now. But this is just a physical demonstration, an illustration, if you will, of what it's like to make myself the center of my world, where my will, my desires mean more, have more value than anybody else's. I put myself as the validator of the world around me. Here's how I can know if this is a little too close to me. I'm served a meal, I'm at an attraction, I hear music, and the words come out of my mouth. I like that. I don't like that. Like I have to state it, like it's important for everybody to know. I'm comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with that. Oh, that was a good situation. Oh, that was a bad situation. Some of you may or may not know that about 4 years ago, I almost lost my life. In fact, today, I got a news clipping of a gentleman who had the same experience I did in Kansas, and he died. Riding a motorcycle out in the country, and somebody on a farm let a dog go right when I was coming by, and I slammed into this dog, killed the dog. Terrible concussion, broken bones, road rash, demolished my motorcycle, I thought my life was over. Thankfully, a medical personnel was in a car behind me and took care of me and kept me stable until the ambulance got there and all. But I'll never forget, the reason I was there was they were burning wheat stubble on a major highway in Kansas, and I was detoured off onto a country road in the evening hours of the day, which I did not want to do because there's deer everywhere. I didn't choose to be there, but I remember as I was turning the motorcycle south toward Howard, Kansas on Highway 99, and then I was going to hit 160 into Winfield, Kansas, and up to Wichita. And I took a little side road that was a shortcut that somebody where I was filling gas told me I could save some time. I remember as I'm turning my motorcycle, well, God, I guess you have some adventure for me. I have no idea what. I thought the adventure was going to be maybe sharing the Lord with somebody at Burger King. Little did I know that God was going to come close to taking my life and really derailing my life for the next 4.5 years in that 1 second. I remember laying in that ditch and I was knocked out. I had a terrible concussion. I had this hand, if you see, there's a big knot on the top of this hand here. It was broken and feet broken. And oh my, the guy that came up onto me, he lifted my face mask and he's like, oh my goodness, your eyes are so dilated. You have a terrible concussion. And I'm laying there in and out of consciousness. And I remember the thought, God, what could you possibly want to accomplish by allowing this in my life? I was not saying that sarcastically. I really meant it. Little did I know. Oh man, little did I know. Not only then, but even now, today, what God was trying to change in me because of that. So I become a little frustrated when I'm with people who see and encounter a situation and immediately label it bad, like they're giving Satan credit for a situation that God's totally in control of. In fact, it wouldn't have happened unless God, for some reason beyond me, wouldn't have allowed it. So how dare me look into the situations around me and go, that's terrible. You know, I see these memes on Facebook all the time. This is what 2020 is like, and it's like a car with all 4 flat tires. And they put a sentence on this year because it's not going the way they wanted. I'm here to tell you, get ready. Are you ready? This has been one of the most amazing years I have ever had in my life. But it's because I started it with, well, God, you must have some adventure for us here. I'm looking for it. Because it's not my will for this year, it's yours. I don't know what you're wanting to accomplish, not only in America, in the world, in my town, in my family, but in me. But I want your will more than I even want what I want. I'm willing to give up what I love and I'm comfortable in for what you love. And so I am so challenged in this season to keep from using phrases like, I like that, I don't like that, I'm comfortable with that, I'm not comfortable with that, and so forth, because I'm trying and I'm encouraging you to try with me. What would it be if it was God's will and not mine? The reality is, we will be challenged to acquiesce a portion of our will throughout, you get ready, you got your seatbelt on, throughout our entire life. In the next few weeks, we are going to be talking about, is there a season someplace in my life where somehow I was taught or I bought into the lie that that's all the will I will need to give up from here? I can hold on to all the rest. Is there a season in my life that maybe my will got stuck in, where I am unwilling to acquiesce any longer. I was on the Where's Your Will train, and this one I just said, I'm getting off at this stop. I can tell you that you show me a person who bucks will of authority, who does it their way or the highway, who's an old dog you can't teach new tricks anymore, who is done learning, and I'll show you a person who somewhere in their life, in the maturing of their will, just said, that's it, I'm getting out. My will is no longer up for exchange. I'm keeping it all. And I want to say to you, show me a person like that. In fact, let me show you this next, and I believe almost our final slide for tonight. Show me a person who has lost their will. Show me a person who fights their entire life to protect their own will, and we'll show you a person who very possibly could live miserable and alone the remaining years of their life, at odds with people, often for no obvious reason to them, but often blaming other people for the misery they're experiencing.